So we worked so hard to get this unit circle filled out with all these terminal points and to learn how to evaluate sine, cosine, and tangent by reading this unit circle. And in this video and the next, I want to partially simplify this process so that we're not so reliant on our unit circle, but also to expand our skills so that we'll be able to find the sine, cosine, and tangent of larger angles, the angles that are bigger than 360, and also negative angles. All right, so really when we go around the unit circle and we're finding the terminal point of an angle, really all we need to know is, number one, is it a red, blue, or purple angle? And also what quadrant it's in. So if I tell you that I'm looking at a purple angle, then you know that the terminal point is 1/2 comma √3/2. And then you just need to know what quadrant it's in so that you know whether you need to make the X or Y or both coordinates negative. All right, so let's summarize that. We need to know what quadrant we're in. And we also need to know, is it a red, blue, or purple angle? All right, so I'm going to focus on the quadrant question in this video and the red, blue, or purple question in the next video. All right, so once we know what quadrant we're in, we can actually predict whether sine, cosine, and tangent are going to be positive or negative just by thinking about what quadrant we're in. All right, so let's think about our 4 quadrants. All right, so we know that our terminal point is cosine comma sine of whatever angle we're at. So if we have an angle that's landed us in the first quadrant, both the X and Y coordinates are positive, so both sine and cosine are positive. So sine theta is going to be positive if we land in the first quadrant, and so will cosine theta. And then we know tangent is sine divided by cosine. Positive divided by positive is going to be something positive, so tangent theta is also going to be positive in the first quadrant. When we move into the second quadrant, all of the X coordinates go negative. So remember, cosine is the X coordinate, so cosine theta in the second quadrant is going to be negative. Sine is the Y coordinate. Those are still positive in the second quadrant. So sine theta is going to be positive. But then tangent, sine divided by cosine, positive divided by negative, is going to be negative. When we get down into the third quadrant, both the X and Y coordinates are negative. So both sine and cosine will be negative. And then when we divide sine divided by cosine, only then tangent becomes positive. Negative divided by negative will give us positive. Down in the fourth quadrant, we get positive X coordinates, negative Y coordinates. Okay, so sine is going to be negative because of the negative Y coordinates. Cosine is going to be positive because of the positive X coordinates. And then tangent, negative divided by positive, sine over cosine, is going to be negative. All right, so that does not look like a simple diagram that we're going to easily memorize, but let's focus on which functions are positive in each quadrant. So all 3 of them are positive in the first quadrant. In the second quadrant, only sine is positive. In the third quadrant, only tangent. And in the fourth quadrant, only cosine. Now, I've deliberately left off the other 3 reciprocal functions because they kind of inherit their positive or negativeness from sine, cosine, and tangent. So we really just need to be thinking about sine, cosine, tangent here. All right, so we have a way of remembering that, and that is this mnemonic device. Let me see if I can squeeze it in up here. Okay, so when you're talking about sine, cosine, and tangent, in the first quadrant, all 3, that A, all 3 are positive. In the second quadrant, just sine. In the third, just tangent. And in the fourth, just cosine. Okay, so going counterclockwise from the first quadrant, ASTC. If you go clockwise, it spells the word acts, but since we tend to measure our angles counterclockwise, we'll remember ASTC. I've heard students memorize this with all students take calculus or all suckers take calculus. You can decide how you want to remember that. But we're going to use that little ASTC mnemonic device to help us to determine whether the angle we're looking at has a positive or negative sine, cosine, or tangent. All right. So in the next video, we're going to focus on what we're really talking about when we say, is an angle red, blue, or purple?